American breakthrough. The Ukraine war could end. Next week, Trump has declared that Zelensky has no role in the peace talks. According to the president, the war could be concluded within a week. U.S. President Donald Trump is confident that he can reach an agreement with Russia to end the war in Ukraine, which could happen as early as next week, according to White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt's statement during a press briefing on Saturday. Zelensky has no role in ending the war. Returning from CPAC, Leavitt stated that the president and his team are focused on ending the war, which Trump believes can be achieved within a week. According to the Hill's summary, the spokesperson made this statement after Trump remarked that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has no role in the negotiations and would do better to stay out of future great power peace talks. Leavitt also mentioned that National Security Advisor Matt Waltz has been working non-stop over the weekend on the agreement. Additionally, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is involved in negotiations regarding the exploitation of Ukraine's mineral resources. The issue of natural resources is crucial for Trump, as it could help reimburse U.S. taxpayers' money spent on Ukraine. According to the press secretary, once the war is over, there will be a great economic partnership between the United States and the Ukrainian people as they rebuild the country after the devastating war. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio stated that the agreement on mineral resources could generate around $200 million in revenue, while also helping to guarantee Ukraine's security. According to the State Department, the United States has provided $65.9 billion in military aid to Ukraine since the beginning of the war. Analysis and conclusion. The U.S. breakthrough in the Ukraine war. The article details the latest U.S. government plans to bring an end to the war in Ukraine, which President Donald Trump believes could be achieved within a week. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt confirmed that the president is actively working on peace talks. However, the role of the Ukrainian leadership, particularly Volodymyr Zelensky, in these negotiations remains uncertain. This analysis examines several key factors, including U.S. diplomatic strategy, economic interests, Ukraine's sovereignty, and potential geopolitical consequences. 1. The U.S. strategy and objectives. Trump's radical approach. Donald Trump has consistently been critical of the level of support provided to Ukraine, and during his presidency, he repeatedly stated that the U.S. should renegotiate its role in the conflict. His latest statement aligns with this stance. The American president believes the war can be swiftly concluded through a great power agreement in which Zelensky plays no significant role. Why might a quick resolution be possible? Direct negotiations with Russia. The U.S. is likely engaging in direct negotiations with Russia, bypassing Ukraine. Ukraine's geopolitical dependence. Trump and his team seem to believe that Ukraine is entirely dependent on American support, meaning it may not have full autonomy in deciding how to end the war. Compromise with Russia. To achieve rapid peace, Trump may be willing to make concessions to Putin, possibly regarding the Donbas region and Crimea. 2. The question of Ukrainian sovereignty. Excluding Zelensky from the talks. Trump has explicitly stated that Zelensky has no role in the peace talks, implying that the United States and Russia are making decisions about the war's end without full Ukrainian involvement. This stance raises several concerns. Compromising Ukraine's political sovereignty. If the fate of the war is decided solely by foreign powers, Ukraine's sovereignty could be significantly undermined. This would be alarming for both the Ukrainian leadership and its citizens, as a peace deal made without Ukraine's full participation may not align with its national interests. Zelensky's political future. If the war were to end under these circumstances, Zelensky's authority and political standing could weaken considerably. A peace agreement imposed by external powers might spark internal political instability in Ukraine. 3. U.S. economic interests and the mineral resource agreement. The role of Ukraine's mineral wealth. Another crucial aspect of the article is the parallel economic negotiations concerning Ukraine's mineral resources. National Security Advisor Matt Waltz and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent are reportedly actively involved in discussions regarding this matter. The U.S. seeks economic returns. Trump has repeatedly stated that U.S. taxpayers' money spent on Ukraine should be reimbursed. To date, the United States has provided over $65 billion in military aid. Ukraine's valuable natural resources. Ukraine possesses vast reserves of rare earth minerals, lithium and uranium, which are critical for the modern technology industry. Mutual benefits? A post-war economic partnership could assist in Ukraine's reconstruction with American investments. However, the terms of such an agreement remain uncertain. Would Ukraine be compelled to cede significant control over its natural resources in return for financial aid? 4. Geopolitical consequences and Russia's reaction. What does this mean for Russia? If Trump successfully negotiates a swift agreement with Putin, it could be highly beneficial for Russia. Such a deal would likely not impose severe conditions on Moscow and could even legitimize its territorial gains from the war. How will Europe and NATO respond? Unacceptable for European leaders? The European Union and NATO have consistently maintained that Ukraine must be included in all negotiations. If Trump overrides this consensus, it could create significant tension between the US and Europe. NATO's future. If the US and Russia finalize Ukraine's fate without European input, it could complicate Ukraine's NATO aspirations, as Russia firmly opposes its membership. Conclusion: a risky and rapid resolution? According to the developments outlined in the article, Donald Trump and his team are pushing for a swift peace agreement in which Ukraine has limited influence. This approach raises several political, economic, and strategic concerns. Pros: if the war can indeed be concluded within a week, it would save lives, reduce the risk of escalation, and alleviate global economic pressures caused by the conflict. Cons: the exclusion of Ukraine from the negotiations could undermine its sovereignty and long-term security. Additionally, such an approach might strain US-EU relations. Economic motives. The US stands to gain not only politically but also economically, as post-war reconstruction and access to Ukraine's natural resources could yield substantial financial returns. Overall, Trump's strategy is bold and controversial. If he manages to secure a quick agreement with Russia, it could significantly reshape global geopolitics. However, from Ukraine's perspective and the broader international community's standpoint, the fairness and sustainability of such a peace deal remain highly questionable. 2. The question of Ukrainian sovereignty, excluding Zelensky from the negotiations. Trump has explicitly stated that Zelensky has no role in the peace talks. This means that the US and Russia are negotiating the end of the war directly, without fully involving Ukraine. This position raises several concerns. Violation of Ukraine's political sovereignty. If the war's resolution is indeed decided by the US and Russia alone, it would significantly undermine Ukraine's sovereignty. This would be extremely concerning for both the Ukrainian leadership and its citizens, as such a peace agreement may not necessarily align with Ukraine's interests. Zelensky's political standing. If the war is truly ended in the manner suggested by these developments, Zelensky's authority and domestic political position could be significantly weakened. A decision imposed by foreign powers without Ukraine's full participation could heighten internal political tensions. 3. U.S. economic interests and the Mineral Resource Agreement. The role of natural resources. Another critical aspect of the article is that, alongside peace negotiations, the U.S. is also preparing economic agreements with Ukraine regarding the exploitation of its mineral resources. National Security Advisor Matt Waltz and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent are reportedly working continuously on this issue. The U.S. seeks financial returns. Trump has repeatedly emphasized the need for the U.S. taxpayers' money to be reimbursed after the U.S. has provided over $65 billion in military aid to Ukraine. The value of Ukraine's natural resources. Ukraine possesses vast reserves of critical minerals, including rare earth elements, lithium, and uranium, which are essential for the modern technology industry. Mutual benefits? Post-war economic cooperation could facilitate Ukraine's reconstruction with U.S. investments. However, a crucial question arises. Under what conditions would Ukraine grant significant control over its natural resources? 4. Geopolitical consequences and Russia's reaction. What does this mean for Russia? If Trump does indeed reach a swift agreement with Putin, it could be highly advantageous for Russia. Such a peace deal would likely not require Moscow to make significant concessions, and might even legitimize the territories it has occupied in recent years. How will Europe and NATO respond? Unacceptable for European leaders? The European Union and NATO leaders have consistently maintained that peace negotiations should not exclude Ukraine. If Trump overrides this consensus, it could create serious tensions between the US and Europe. The future of NATO. If the US and Russia negotiate Ukraine's future directly, the prospect of Ukraine's NATO membership could become uncertain, as Russia has strongly opposed Ukraine's accession to the alliance. Conclusion: a risky and rapid resolution? According to the developments outlined in the article, Donald Trump and his team are pushing for a swift peace agreement in which Ukraine has a limited role. This approach raises multiple political, economic, and strategic questions. Pros. If the war can indeed be ended within a week, it could save lives, reduce the risk of conflict escalation, and alleviate the war's global economic impact. Cons. Undermining Ukrainian sovereignty and making rushed compromises could place Ukraine in a weaker position in the long run. Additionally, U.S.-EU relations could become strained. Economic interests. The U.S. stands to gain politically and economically as post-war reconstruction and access to Ukraine's mineral wealth could generate significant revenues. Overall, Trump's strategy is bold and controversial. If he successfully secures a rapid agreement with Russia, it could bring major shifts in international politics. However, from the perspective of the Ukrainian people and the broader international community, the fairness and sustainability of such a peace deal remain highly questionable.